It was the sound of nostalgia, a melody that drifted through neighborhoods and brought smiles to children's faces. The ice cream truck, a universal symbol of innocence and happiness. But for the families of North Bergen, New Jersey, in the early 1980s, that familiar jingle would come to represent something else entirely. It would become the prelude to terror. At first glance, Robert Prongay was just another vendor, a friendly face who handed out frozen treats to children and waved at parents as he made his rounds. His truck, painted with bright colors and cheerful slogans, was a mobile beacon of joy. Yet, hidden inside that truck was something far less cheerful. Prongay wasn't just serving ice cream. He was conducting surveillance, stalking his victims, and, as some would later claim, laying the groundwork for murder. Prongay's customers knew him as Mr. Softy, but his association with one of America's most infamous hitmen, Richard Kuklinski, suggested a far more chilling reality. To the outside world, Prongay seemed ordinary, a former Army demolitions expert turned ice cream man. But detectives would later uncover a connection to cyanide, explosives, and a twisted philosophy of how to make a life disappear without a trace. This wasn't just a man with a dark past. It was someone who turned the comforting hum of an ice cream truck into a chilling prelude to death. The true horror came to light when his lifeless body was found slumped over in his ice cream truck on a hot August day in 1984. He had been shot twice, the cheerful paint of the truck spattered with blood. But that wasn't the end of the mystery. It was only the beginning. Why had this man, who lived behind a mask of simplicity, met such a violent end? And what role did he play in a string of disappearances and deaths that investigators were only just beginning to piece together? Stay with us as we unravel the life and crimes of Robert Prongay, a man whose truck carried not just frozen treats, but unspeakable secrets. What began as a search for a motive would reveal a story more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. And just when authorities thought they had all the answers, a single detail would change everything, leaving behind a question that haunts investigators to this day. The year was 1984. It was summer in North Bergen, New Jersey, and the streets were alive with the sounds of children playing and the cheerful chime of an ice cream truck weaving through the neighborhood. For the families living here, it was a time of simplicity and safety. A time when kids could ride their bikes until dusk and parents waved to their neighbors from their porches. But amidst the warm evenings and carefree days, a darkness lingered, one that no one could see. For those who lived on these streets, Robert Prongay was just Mr. Softy, the kind-faced man behind the wheel of the neighborhood's ice cream truck. Parents trusted him, children adored him. No one could have imagined that behind his friendly smile was a man capable of horrifying acts. North Bergen wasn't a place you'd expect to find danger. It was the quintessential suburban town, rows of neat houses, parks full of families, and a tight-knit community where everyone knew each other. The ice cream truck was a staple of summer evenings, its jingle echoing down the tree-lined streets. It was a sound that promised joy, not fear, but all that changed when whispers began to surface about the man behind the wheel. For some, Prongay was simply an eccentric. He had served in the Army as a demolitions expert and claimed to know things most civilians would never dream of. He told stories of his military past and sometimes spoke too freely about his knowledge of poisons and explosives. Neighbors thought it was just harmless talk, a man reminiscing about his time in service, but for a few families, these stories would soon take on a chilling new meaning. It was a warm evening in July when 10-year-old Danny Marlowe went missing. Danny had been playing in his front yard when he heard the jingle of the ice cream truck. Witnesses later reported seeing him approach the truck, clutching a dollar bill in his hand. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. For days, the neighborhood searched. Flyers were posted on every tree and pole, the community banding together to find the boy. When Danny's body was discovered in a wooded area a week later, it was as if the soul of the town had been ripped out. He had been poisoned, and investigators found no signs of a struggle, just a small pile of coins near his body. Over the next 2 years, 3 more children disappeared under eerily similar circumstances, each last seen near Prangay's ice cream truck. Parents grew suspicious, but Prangay seemed unaffected. He continued his route, waving at neighbors and serving children, his smile never faltering. The truck's cheerful jingle now struck fear into the hearts of many, but without solid evidence, there was nothing authorities could do. North Bergen transformed almost overnight. The streets that had once been filled with the laughter of children grew eerily silent. Parents kept their kids indoors, and whispers spread about the man driving the ice cream truck. Some said they saw him lingering in the park after dark, watching the children play. Others noticed him driving his route long after the sun had set, his truck parked for hours at odd locations. But when asked, Prangay always had an explanation: a late delivery, a last-minute request from a customer. The community grew restless, and the police launched an investigation, but Prangay remained elusive. His past, however, was harder to ignore. Stories of his time in the army began to surface, claims that he had learned to use chemicals in ways few could understand, that he had ties to Richard Kuklinski, the infamous Iceman. Rumors circulated about the 2 men working together, about a partnership that turned cold-blooded murder into a science. As detectives began to connect the dots, they realized they weren't just dealing with an ice cream man who had a dark past. They were facing something far more calculated. Each child's death had a precision to it, a pattern that suggested the killer knew exactly what he was doing. And when investigators found their first real piece of evidence, it would unravel a story no one in North Bergen could have prepared for. The summer of 1984 in North Bergen had turned into a time of unease. The once bustling neighborhood was growing quieter, the laughter of children replaced by the sound of concerned whispers. What began with the disappearance of Danny Marlowe would soon spiral into a pattern that even the most skeptical could no longer ignore. Robert Prangay, the ice cream man with a seemingly endless smile, was at the center of it all. Just weeks after Danny's body was discovered, 8-year-old Lucy Rivera vanished. Lucy had been playing hopscotch with her friends when she heard the familiar jingle of the ice cream truck. Witnesses recalled seeing her approach the truck, clutching her favorite doll in one hand and a few coins in the other. Hours later, her doll was found discarded in a park, but Lucy was nowhere to be seen. For days, her family pleaded with the community for help. Flyers were posted, search parties were organized, and local news stations broadcast Lucy's photo. Then, a hiker discovered her lifeless body near a secluded trail. The cause of death was poisoning. Just like Danny, investigators noted that, chillingly, her coins were again found near the scene. By the fall, fear had gripped the neighborhood, but the horrors continued. 10-year-old Kevin O'Donnell was the next victim. Unlike the others, Kevin was last seen walking home from school, not near the ice cream truck. His disappearance initially baffled investigators until a classmate recalled seeing Kevin speak with someone in a white truck parked near the school. Days later, Kevin's body was found in an abandoned lot, marked by the same pattern: poisoning and a pile of coins. The community was growing increasingly restless. The connection to the ice cream truck seemed undeniable, but Robert Prange maintained his innocence, insisting he was being targeted by false accusations. He even offered to cooperate with police investigations, a move that some saw as a calculated attempt to throw them off his trail. By the time 9-year-old Amanda Lee disappeared in early 1985, many parents had forbidden their children from approaching the ice cream truck. Amanda, however, was an exception. She had always been a cautious child, described as wary even of strangers. But that day, something, or someone, convinced her to let her guard down. Amanda's case was different. There were signs of a struggle near her home, and neighbors reported hearing the faint melody of an ice cream truck nearby just before she vanished. Her body was found 3 days later, and though the pattern remained, poisoning and coins, this time, investigators discovered something else. A single thread of fabric was caught in her clenched fist, one that didn't match her clothing. The discovery of this clue reignited the investigation and brought national attention to the case. Detectives began to focus their efforts on Prange's past, uncovering disturbing links to Richard Kuklinski, the notorious Iceman. The two had allegedly worked together in the past, with Kuklinski claiming that Prange taught him techniques for using poisons and disposing of bodies. This revelation painted a much darker picture of the man North Bergen thought they knew. With mounting pressure from the public and the media, law enforcement intensified their efforts to prove Prange's connection to the murders. The evidence was circumstantial but chilling. Eyewitness accounts, a growing pattern of disappearances, and his alleged ties to a prolific hitman. Yet, Prange remained elusive, his unassuming demeanor hiding whatever truths lay beneath the surface. What happened next would shock even the most seasoned investigators. As they began to close in on their suspect, a brutal and unexpected twist would force them to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about the ice cream truck killer. After Emily Carter's disappearance, Cedarwood saw 2 more chilling incidents within 6 months. 12-year-old Jacob Lewis vanished while walking home from school. Witnesses recalled seeing the ice cream truck parked nearby, but no one saw Jacob board it. A month later, Claire Johnson, a 14-year-old high schooler, went missing after an ice cream truck was spotted near her family's shop. Both were described as happy, well-loved children with no reason to run away. Investigators began drawing connections between these cases. The common thread, Robert Prange's ice cream truck, once a source of joy, now a harbinger of dread. Cedarwood, once tranquil, turned paranoid. Parents forbade their children from approaching the truck, and whispers spread about the man behind the wheel. Yet, there was no concrete evidence to link Prange directly to the crimes, only circumstantial sightings and an increasing number of missing children. Prange was not merely an ice cream vendor but a meticulous killer who used his profession as cover. Authorities, digging deeper, uncovered chilling parallels in the cases of Emily, Jacob, and Claire. Bodies were later found in snow-laden woods, all showing signs of poisoning consistent with cyanide, a method Prange was rumored to have taught hitman Richard Kuklinski, who also earned infamy as the Iceman. Prange reportedly stored his victims' bodies in his ice cream truck's freezer, obscuring the time of death and disorienting investigators. This macabre detail only heightened the terror. With mounting public pressure, Cedarwood law enforcement intensified their efforts. They uncovered Prange's criminal connections, including suspected ties to mob killings. His use of cyanide and his precision mirrored techniques used in mob executions, but his motivations seemed personal, inflicting pain and asserting control over his victims. Wiretaps, surveillance, and eyewitness testimonies painted a damning picture. Yet Prange remained elusive, using his job and seemingly benign demeanor to avoid suspicion. Detectives described him as eerily calm, even under pressure. One winter evening, a vigilant neighbor observed Prangay coaxing a child into his truck. Alarmed, the neighbor called the police, who intercepted him before another tragedy unfolded. A subsequent search of his truck revealed cyanide vials, personal items linked to the victims, and chilling notes detailing his crimes. But when investigators opened one specific compartment in the freezer, what they found sent shockwaves through the entire team. Something they weren't prepared for and that Prangay refused to explain. What could this hidden discovery mean? Was it evidence of more victims, a personal trophy, or something far more cryptic? The case had taken a turn no one saw coming, and it threatened to unravel everything detectives thought they knew about the ice cream truck killer. The discovery in Prangay's truck led to his immediate arrest. Investigators knew they had the smoking gun, or in this case, the frozen evidence. But they still had to untangle the full extent of his crimes. The contents of the mysterious freezer compartment turned out to be even more damning. Inside were personal belongings from victims that had never been reported missing. These items suggested that Prangay may have claimed far more lives than initially suspected. During interrogations, Prangay maintained an eerie composure, denying everything despite the overwhelming evidence. His demeanor, described by detectives as completely devoid of remorse, frustrated investigators. Even when presented with photos of the victims and their belongings, he refused to confess, insisting he was the victim of a conspiracy. The trial of Robert Prangay gripped the nation. Dubbed the ice cream truck killer, his case became a media sensation, both for the horrifying nature of his crimes and the paradox of his profession, selling joy to children while preying on their innocence. Prosecutors presented a devastating array of evidence, including the cyanide vials, his handwritten notes, and the testimonies of surviving witnesses who had narrowly escaped his grasp. One child, now a teenager, recounted an encounter where Prangay offered her a free treat, but her father intervened just in time. Key to the trial was the forensic analysis of the victims' remains. Traces of cyanide were found in every confirmed case, linking Prangay's methodology to that of Richard Kuklinski. However, Prangay's defense team attempted to cast doubt on the evidence, claiming it was circumstantial and pointing to his lack of a direct confession. In 1987, after a tense 6-week trial, the jury found Robert Prangay guilty of multiple counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole, but even in his final statement he maintained his innocence, leaving the courtroom with a chilling smile. Despite Prangay's conviction, many questions remained unanswered. While investigators confirmed 7 murders, they suspected Prangay's victim count could be significantly higher. The items found in his truck indicated he may have targeted children in other towns, but without further evidence, these cases remain unresolved. Prangay's alleged mentorship of Richard Kuklinski raised unsettling questions about how many of Kuklinski's murders were influenced by Prangay's techniques. Kuklinski himself admitted to learning how to use cyanide from Prangay, but denied knowing the full extent of his crimes. Unlike other serial killers, Prangay's motives were never fully understood. Was he driven by personal vendettas, the thrill of the hunt, or something else entirely? Psychologists who reviewed his case noted the stark contradiction between his outward charm and his inner cruelty, but Prangay refused to cooperate with any interviews or evaluations. For Cedarwood, the arrest brought a bittersweet sense of closure. The town attempted to heal, erecting a memorial for the victims in the local park, but the fear lingered. Parents became hypervigilant, and children stopped associating ice cream trucks with joy. For the families of the victims, justice brought little comfort. One mother, in a tearful interview, remarked, He stole my daughter's future. No sentence can give that back to us. Prangai's story remains one of the most chilling true crime cases in history, a reminder of how evil can hide in plain sight. Robert Prangai's story is a chilling testament to the fact that evil doesn't always come with a warning. For years, he drove through quiet neighborhoods, smiling at parents and serving treats to children, all while harboring unimaginable darkness. His case shattered the innocence of a community and left us scars that time could never fully heal. Decades later, we are still left with haunting questions. What drove him to commit such atrocities? Were there more victims whose stories remain untold? And how many others, like Prangai, hide in plain sight behind masks of normalcy? If this story left you questioning what lies beneath the surface, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Could Prangai's crimes have been stopped sooner? And what do we learn from a case like this? Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next episode of Crimson Tales. Together, we'll continue to uncover the chilling truths behind the most shocking crimes in history.